colleagues this morning, they said, well, what would you like to talk about? So I started thinking about one of the things I miss most about working in kind of a normal workplace, as opposed to the kind of freaky ministry thing I do now. And it was actually being alongside so many people who weren't Christian, spending, the vast bulk of my waking hours with them. Because for a whole heap of those people, and still for them now, because I worked for the Treasury about 15 years ago, was when I left. I still keep up with 4 or 5 people from that workplace. I actually made some very good friends then. I was the only Christian they knew well. They knew of Christians, they kind of encountered them, but in terms of someone they watched, they saw, they talked with, they saw on good days and bad days, I was it. And I was easily the most evangelistic then in my personal life than I have ever been. Now, I evangelise as a job now, but it's not the same. Not the same as those personal friendships and relationships and being alongside them for the long term. That's what I miss. And so that's what I thought. I'll just toss up some ideas. Now, you're getting my experience, my background. Your workplace won't be exactly the same as mine, so you're going to have to make all of those steps. So I call this, seizing the day, carpe diem, and forgive me if I'm misquoting Horace. But I actually think there are unique opportunities that your workplace provides, or more significantly, the relationships you have in your workplace to introduce people to Jesus. Now, when I use the phrase workplace evangelism, some people think, excellent, bring it on, love it. Okay, you're probably very good at it. We're glad you're here, encourage us, but bear in mind it's harder for some of us than others. Some of you will hear workplace evangelism and think necessary evil. I have an in-principle commitment to this because I believe I want people to become Christians. God needs to be known, but frankly it's hard. People don't come up to me and say, so Helen, please tell me about the Lord Jesus. That's never happened. And the odd times it does seem to come up, I stuff it up. If that is you, I'm hoping kind of being together, talking about it, hearing some stories from each other might give us some ideas about the way to go. There may even be some people here who actually think it's inappropriate when they hear workplace evangelism. I'm not paid to evangelise, I'm paid to work. I just need to be a person of integrity, Christian integrity in my workplace. And there is actually a real truth about that as well, I think. You aren't paid to evangelise. Well, I am, but most of us aren't. You're paid to work. But I think I also want to say that out of the mouth comes the things of the heart. We do tend to naturally speak about the things and the people we love. Right? I'm married. If you worked alongside me for 5 years and you never kind of discovered anything about my husband Andrew, you'd think that was a bit weird. And you'd actually worry about the state of my marriage, I would have thought. Unless I'm one of those people who really don't want to talk about anything private. But most of us do kind of have some degree of personal. I just kind of see talking about Jesus in that light. If we love him, it will come up. Not because we're thinking I must evangelise, it just. And how nice would it be to reach a place to such that kind of integrated life, wouldn't it? Where he just came up naturally and instinctively. I'm working on it. I'm hoping that you are too. And hopefully we'll learn a little bit about how to do it better. Now I want to give you I just want to read a Bible passage because I think what we do should be governed by what God says, not by some stories someone tells, even though the stories are lovely. So let me read from you Colossians 2 verses 3 to 6. Paul says to the Colossians, pray for us that God may open a door for our message so that we may proclaim the mystery of Christ for which I am in chains. Pray that I may proclaim it clearly as I should. Be wise in the way you act towards outsiders. Make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. Now, this has been a key passage for me in thinking about this because Paul's actually talking about his relationship with outsiders, those who aren't Christian, and he wants the Colossians to talk about it as well. One of the things that strikes me is the emphasis on words. Prayer, message, proclaim, conversation, answer. An inherent part of how we relate to people will be the things we say. And let's face it, given we believe in a God who is the Word incarnate, it really shouldn't surprise us that the things we say matter. Paul is saying to the Colossians, to people like us, people with families and hobbies and workplaces, all sorts of activities that bring us into contact with people who aren't Christian. He's saying to people like us, be wise in the way you act. Have conversation that is gracious and salty, and be willing and ready to answer whatever questions come at you. So I want to think about what the opportunity is. Workplaces can get us to do that. So a very specific context for this. Paul's got broader, we're narrowing down. See, I think there are opportunities to introduce people to Jesus, and I'm using the phrase introduce people to Jesus rather than talk about Christianity, because that's all kind of ideas. We actually know a person with other person. We want them to meet a person. So one of the things in my mind I have to keep reminding myself, I'm not here to talk about Christianity, I want them to meet Jesus. It sounds silly, but even that can slightly change where you lead certain conversations. Do I want to talk about a whole heap of Christian ideas and debates, or do I actually want to get them to meet Jesus? And I need to talk about him, and I need to live like him, so they kind of get a sense of what he might have been like through my character. Because that's what we're doing now. We've been made like Jesus, our old brother. So I think opportunities flow. One of the ways they can flow, we'll look at a whole heap of options, is from us being distinctively Christian in the way we act and the way we speak. Because we're actually meant to be different from other people. And that should raise questions about why. And if it doesn't, it may be worth us looking at ourselves and other Christians sometimes. And quite frankly, it was much easier to talk to people about Jesus if they ask you questions. You know, if they initiate the conversation, you don't feel guilty about kind of railroading them, or, you know, it's much easier in the context of a conversation. And the message does seem to imply people may well have questions when they look at the way you act and they listen to the way you speak. I've got one of my good friends at the moment. We have been talking about this because she has been bullied at work, as have a number of our other colleagues. So a group of them have taken action through the union to deal with this bullying. And I've been talking with her about what is a distinctively Christian way of responding to this. I think it's right to take action. I don't think it's right to be exploited. And she needs to protect her other colleagues, right? This woman's been working in this workplace for a long time and no one's done anything. So there's a broader issue than just her. There's care for others in what she's doing. She's going to take the fall, I suspect, for it. But so we've been talking about how she describes what's happening to her colleagues. To be really truthful, but not to be gossipy. To not rely on hearsay to justify her hurt. Yet, the way you speak in situations like that needs to be gracious. We've been praying for the bullied. So one of the things she's been trying to do when she talks to her colleagues about this is not just want justice with a really hard edge, but to actually think about what would mercy look like in this situation. What does forgiving your enemies look like in this situation for that actually to come out of conversation? See, because I used to work with really nice people. All right, they were nice. How was I different in my niceness? And my suspicion is it will often come back to this understanding of forgiveness and apologies, you know, that reconciliation angle, which as Christians we have a really distinctive take on, because we believe in both justice and mercy and putting the two together. And I actually think that's a really difficult thing to do in practice. So she's trying to use this difficulty as an opportunity to raise questions. I mean, she's actually trying to be godly in it, but I actually think it is raising questions. So there will be opportunities will arise just by being Christian. Opportunities will arise, I think, in the way other Christians act and speak. It'll come from you, how you act and speak, but it'll come from the ways other Christians act and speak. Because if people know you're Christian, they always come to you with stories about Christians. I don't know whether you're found that, you know, the dodgy things other Christians have done. It does seem to be the dodgy things other Christians have done, less about the wonderful things other Christians have done. So I think we just need to be ready to talk about that type of stuff. I would have thought politically this year, we need to think about what we believe about gay marriage and about the government inquiry into children in institutions. I would have thought that will come up, and if you are known to be a Christian, there will be some people who will want to talk with you about it. we actually need to have something to say, whether almost like a soundbite comment. If they actually don't want to hear what we have to say, they just want to accuse us. You almost need that one liner, you know what I mean, that you get out before they shut the conversation down. But also a discussion. Now, off the top of my head, I don't know what I would say at this point to those situations. That would be something worth us workshopping at some point. What are helpful ways we can respond? Because again, they're asking the questions. They can't complain about you giving an answer and opinion to a conversation they have started. Because I think people have opinions about Christians out there, but in the workplace they get to know you. So you have that unique opportunity, just because of your proximity to them, to perhaps undermine some misconceptions. All Christians are like that, but you're not. All Christians are hypocrites, but you're really quite honest, actually. It's just that subtle, long-term, well, not all Christians are actually like that. And I'm not going to justify that experience or those Christians, I cannot do that, but let me tell you about the God that I know. Let me tell you about the way He changes me. That is a very unique opportunity. Because they have to get to know you. They might not want to. They don't get the choice. You're sitting beside them, you're working with them. That's very unique. An opportunity God provides. Because we actually believe in a God who can work good from evil, don't we? Christians, dreadful things have been done in the name of God. That is true. But we believe in a God who can use that for good in particular situations. I've been reading the Joseph story. Read the Joseph story if you're not convinced of that. It's amazing. This is not workplace, but the other day the Jehovah's Witnesses came and visited me the other day, and I was talking to my neighbour about it afterwards, and I just said, the Jehovah's Witnesses came and visited me, we had a lovely conversation. All of a sudden, I now know of her Anglican school background that has led to her not being prepared to let her children go to RE, because it was that destructive, but she's seen the life of Pi and she thinks it's a wonderful thing. That came out just as I said I'd chatted with the Jehovah's Witnesses. Another Christian, suddenly I'm getting Christian baggage coming out. That's a fantastic opportunity. I now need to see the life of Pi, so that I can say, hey, that movie you're talking about, I went and saw it. Here's what I loved. Question marks about this, and we've got a second conversation up and running. Words and actions of other Christians can be really helpful. Or other religious groups. I broaden it for Christians. Great opportunity. There are opportunities to talk with people about Jesus when you discuss your work. I was talking just before now about us needing to learn to think Christianly about the work we do. So I work as an economist, and this is one of the things I regret. I actually think I missed a whole heap of opportunities there. I don't think I put enough thought into what is a distinctively Christian perspective on tax policy, on income distribution, the stuff of my work. Because you will talk about work stuff. And whether or not you can explicitly link it to Jesus, you can certainly have a Christian view on it. And that will be different in some instances. It won't always be, but it will sometimes be. So, taking the opportunities, I suspect, involves us planning a bit and getting together with other Christians in our discipline and trying to sort out how to do this. Because I didn't do it, it's gone now. That time will come back to me again. And I actually think that's good for our community as a whole if we have Christian perspectives in the work. That's not necessarily about introducing people to Jesus, but this is about love. How does it actually help our communities and help them? And I think there's also opportunities to introduce people to Jesus from just sharing life. Just talking about life. In my Bible study at church at the moment, we have a person who is not a Christian coming along. He's been coming for about a year. He came to us because one of the other members of our group, when she got the sack, talked with him about how she trusted God in difficulties. So she kind of came out of that meeting with the boss quite distressed. He was one of her close work colleagues, so he was the one who, okay, let's go out and have a coffee, shall we? Let's just get out of this place and talk. Her distinctively talking about her ability to trust God interested him. He's been at our small group for 12 months. Just sharing life Christianly. Now, sometimes I worry we partition stuff, I'll talk with my Christian friends about this type of issue and I'll talk with my work friends about this type of issue. She talks Christianly with her work colleagues and he's interested. I've got no idea whether he'll become a Christian or not, who can tell? But she's introduced Jesus to him. Whether or not he chooses to get to know Jesus, that's his business. You know? Sharing life. So I guess part of the thing I would like to encourage you to do is to think about what you talk with your colleagues. Most of us are pretty boring. We talk about the same things again and again and again. You will know that. Your friends will, your colleagues will talk about the same things. There is very little variation. It's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
That gives us opportunities to think, what would I like to say about that? So the next time it comes up, slip it in there. TV programs, what do they watch? When I was at work, Buffy the Vampire Slayer and West Wing, because we all wanted to be like the Romans. There were some fantastic Christian conversations flowing from our discussion of those TV programs. News items. I remember turning up to work the day after the Port Arthur massacre happened. So it happened on a Sunday night. I turned up to work Monday morning. One man was in the office. Everyone was talking about it, because what else could you talk about? He thinks the bloke must have been a madman, because how could you explain such evil? We had a fantastic conversation about the darkness of the human heart. That as a Christian, I believed we all had darkness and were selfish inside of us. And for some of us it looked like this, and for some of us it looked like this. But how do you deal with the darkness inside that we know is there because it freaks us out? Fantastic conversation. I've got that here, a story about my... He never wanted to speak about Christian stuff at all. Whenever I raised it, he shut it down. So I never got there. Until one day he'd gone overseas to Europe. He came back and he was telling me about travel. And I got told about all the beautiful churches because I was a Christian, so I'd be interested in all the beautiful churches. And I thought, there it is. The door's open. I took a deep breath because I thought, I'm not going to get a second sentence. Well, actually, I find these big churches quite depressing in some ways because they were built because people were scared that they might be going to hell, so they had to give money to the church. Whereas that's the exact opposite of Christianity, which is actually all about grace. I don't know how much you actually heard. Do people talk about normal stuff? It's us being... Some things you complain for, some things you can't. I get that. But it's being ready to take those opportunities. And some of them involve a lot of time. It just involves building relationships. I have learned to make tea bags so that I could hang out with the ladies from the administration. So that was my workplace, a lot of men in one area and women in the other area. And we had fantastic conversations about their marriages and their partners and their children. And there are always questions of how do I forgive hurts? How do I fix wrongs I have committed? And if they are not conversations that you can introduce Jesus, who forgives us, something's wrong. It comes up if we think about it. But that actually took time. That's about building relationships. That's about spending time with them outside. That's not just about the odd... Because you've kind of got those one-line conversations, but you've also got those bigger, deeper conversations. And I guess one of the big things I had to... I was about to say a hurdle I jumped over, but that would put it in the past tense, and that's not true. It's a hurdle that I seem to keep jumping. Getting to a point where I valued my colleagues' relationship with Jesus more than I valued their relationship with me. Because I think I just didn't want to say some things because I wanted their respect and their affection. Because I respected them and I cared about them. And the reality is, sometimes when you're Christian, people don't react well to that. So in my mind, I had to just get over that hurdle. Do I care more about what they think of me and maintaining this kind of nice friendship that I value? Or do I care more about them and what God thinks of them and what they think of God? Now we need to wind up because I'd like some chat up. The other one I want to talk about is prayer. All of this comes in the context of prayer. Paul says pray for them. You were talking about praying. So these opportunities are God-given. I don't generate them. We don't generate them. They are God-given. We recognise them and try and work out how to use them. But they come from God. My husband works in a mining company. He's discovered another Christian there, kind of, second or third hand, such and such works there. So he's found him. We had that kind of coded conversation. Hi, my name's Andrew. Peter. told me about you, and he works with my wife. You know, that's the, because he didn't know whether the guy was, you know, out and proud about the whole They are actually similar, aren't they? Gayness is about identification, who are you? Christianity is about identification, who are we? There is actually a real similarity, which I suspect is how we need to go with the gay religion. It's actually about identity and how we think of who we are, rather than a set of rights. Well, I think what Andrew is hoping to do is to gather this bloke and start praying for their colleagues, to deliberately meet and pray for their colleagues and see where it will lead. Because I reckon I am still getting opportunities from my workplace. This is weird, but 2 years ago I went to the football. I asked one of the students I was meeting with to pray with me because I've been encouraging her to be overtly Christian with her friends, to be authentically Christian with her friends. And I realised I was a bit of a hypocrite because I wasn't doing that. I just didn't have those relationships anymore. So I'd asked her to pray for me to find those personal relationships. Because mine don't come from work anymore. They've got to come somewhere else. I turned up at the football, walking up the stands, and there's a lady sitting there and says, "Oh, I've got a spare seat, come and sit with me." I sit down with her, we start talking. She works at the tax office. I say, "Oh, Castleman Place." She says, "Yes, how do you know about Castleman Place?" "Oh, I used to work on something called TOFA." "TOFA? How many people know what TOFA is?" "All right. Turns out, you know what TOFA is, we can chat later." She works with people I used to work with, they never got out. She works on legislative policy I helped develop 15 years ago. I met her in an MCG crowd. We're both Collingwood fans, that's Happy Harmony. God is still providing me with unique opportunities from my workplace. Isn't that remarkable? 15 years ago. Now, even as I say this story, I need to repent because I haven't followed up with her. She gave me her phone number and said, "Next time at your football, catch up." I didn't even have to do the work. Let's build the relationship. She gave it to me. And as I wrote this story down, I thought I haven't followed up on that. I will do so next week. See, I've abandoned that opportunity, and that's not okay. God will provide the opportunities. We need to see them and grab them. Now, I realise I'm kind of 15 years out of date. You know, you've got your own workplaces, you have your own topics of conversation, your colleagues relate in a particular way. I don't know, any thoughts, comments, observations in terms of stories to tell to encourage us about the opportunities that God provides to introduce people to Jesus? Not just download gospel, right? But that long-term, steady meeting over time. Which sometimes involves a lot of download.